Hey guys, if you watched my last video, you have probably seen that I had some problems with the Lehigh Defense Controlled Chaos 55 grain brass bullets not fracturing as I was hoping they would at 300 meters. Under this video, the customer support of Lehigh Defense actually replied pretty quickly that their bullets need to have at least 600 meters per second or 2,200 feet per second of velocity in order to reliably perform. So when I said they did not perform as advertised, that was actually not quite right, because they do state that on their website that they do need a certain velocity threshold in order to reliably perform. And what I want to test today is I have another ballistics gel block here which is similar to the one that I was using at the 300 meter range, and I'm going to test the bullet against, again, the M193 ball type of ammunition at a more realistic sort of police shootout, home defense sort of distance of 50 meters, which is about the same in yards, like 50 meters or yards. It's not a big difference. And I'm going to be shooting the block on the right side with the Lehigh Defense, and on the left side with the M93 ball type of ammo. And we're going to see if both bullets perform a little bit different at closer range. So this was a very violent impact. It flipped the whole block around, which is not very usual with 223 ammo. And I can already see that this time we captured the bullet. You can see this slant here is actually from hitting it the steel plate. But you can see that's actually the back of the bullet that hit the steel plate. And this is the part that is like this wad cutter part that will continue on and cause this depth penetration that I was telling you about in the other video, that I was hoping I would also get in the 300 meter shooting. So you can see the tip basically shredded into hundreds of pieces, and that was quite visible with the rapid energy dump. And this wound track here in this block looks entirely different than what I had seen at the 300 meter range. The 300 meter range, the wound track was quite large, but it was absolutely flat. Like, it was about this high, and it was flat going all the way back the whole length of the block. This one is actually three-dimensional, and I can see lots and lots of little bits and pieces of brass inside this block here. The wound cavity is about, well, 2.5 inches broad and about the same height. It's a little bit broader than it's high, but you can see shrapnel almost through the entirety of this block. So that's the type of performance that I was hoping to see out of this bullet that is so praised, and this would have been definitely very effective. Okay, so again you can see it flipped the entire block around and over. So and this 20 millimeter thick board of particle board here is also completely broken. So you can see how much energy that just dumped into the gel. I shot the first block, the first bullet into this side, and the full metal jacket bullet I shot into this side, and shot it a little bit to the left. And now I can see again this sort of flat tumbling cavity that it did. It went in, started tumbling about maybe 2.5, 3 inches in, started tumbling, left a pretty good sized tumble cavity, and this time the bullet actually did rip apart. It did rip apart. I have one piece of bullet there, and I've seen another piece of bullet here. It's gonna be not too hard to distinguish which was the Lehigh Defense and which was the full metal jacket, because the Lehigh Defense is just gonna be brass, while the FMJ bullet is gonna have a lot of lead and bronze fracturing. So let's cut this open. Okay, let's start with the Lehigh Defense first. It came in here. I'm gonna start the cut right here. And it continues, and the base carried on until here. Like this. Oh yeah. So this is what the bullet did. You can see this time it is a 3-dimensional track. I can stick my finger in here, I can peel this up, and we have all of those little brass fragments. They're just stuck inside this wound track. So this is maybe 25 centimeters, so about maybe 10 inches in length on both sides of the track. And as you can see, the base of the bullet carried through the entire 16 inches of the block. So we do have definitely sufficient depth penetration. And you can see just how shredded this is. Like, this is really shredded gelatin, and it has lots of these little bits and pieces in it. So this would definitely cause a tremendous initial shock. Maybe this time I tried using the slow-mo function on my cell phone to get a slow-mo video of the bullet impact. Maybe we'll see some temporary stretch cavity. I'll have to review that. Of course you will see it, have seen it already in the video then. But yeah, permanent wound cavity is really devastating. This would be right the depth of the vital organs on most animals and human being. And yeah, even if you shot someone, let's say in the shoulder, it would have carried on far enough in order to do its job. You can have fragments like this is maybe 11 inches here, and we still have fragments. So that's what I was also telling you about. The fragmenting should take place not only explosively in the beginning, but it should go gradually all the way through the entire wound channel, which is also probably why this is called controlled chaos, because it's not just exploding, but it's releasing those fragments in a controlled way. So let's take a look at the full metal jacket impacted here. So I think I'm first going to cut away the top portion here. Yes, now we get a nice view on that. Unfortunately, both wound tracks did intersect just a little bit. but at least I can still distinguish between them. I hope you can do so in the camera too. So let's see, what is this? That's still a fragment of the Lehigh Defense. It's just brass. But here we have lead. And we know that the Lehigh Defense does not have lead. So what happened was that the 55 grain full metal jacket bullet, it did tumble and then it ripped apart. So it did perform like it should perform, also through some layers of fabric. This is again from the Lehigh. Very nasty, sharp piece of brass. And down here is the track of the 55 grain. Okay, let's cut this away. And I will cut away some here, and I'll remove this piece here too. So, what do we have? This over here, so now you can see, I hope. Yes. So, here's more lead fragment here, and there are little lead fragments, and you can see this is this tumbling mark. So what is shredded here is still from the Lehigh Defense, I think, like there are lots of little pieces of brass, but also lead. So in that case the bullet tracks did intersect a little bit, but here we have lead pieces, and this is only from the 55 grain here. So we have about a 2-inch permanent wound cavity here, you can see that, and here are some bigger pieces of lead. This is the core of the lead bullet, and some part of the bullet did exit out the block, and you can see this whole stretch cavity is a little bit bigger than the bullet diameter. One thing that I noticed is that the expansion of the 55 grain bullet, both are 55, of the full metal jacket bullet started a little bit later in the block than it did with the Lehigh Defense, maybe about an inch later. And that can be a problem if you are shooting something very small, let's say a small animal, or like one thing that the American troops had been reporting, like really skinny Somali people who are a little bit starved and not very big, like it can pass through something before it actually starts tumbling effectively. So that's one of the problems of the XM193. But really nasty tumble cavity after it started tumbling, and this would have, no matter what, put a big wallop on whatever you had been shooting it at. And I would say that this would have been a definite fight stopper if shot placement was correct. And in AR-15 you have at least a 10-round magazine, hopefully a 30-round magazine, and you're probably not just going to be limited to taking one shot, but you could shoot it again, and then, yeah, it should deal with it. So this is the second side here. You can see again from the Lehigh Defense, 3-dimensional cavity, shredded gelatin in here, lots of little fragments, lots of little brass fragments in here, very nasty. And then here, coming from the other side, we actually do have another piece of the full metal jacket bullet here. And that's exactly how it should perform. You can see this is the remainers of this cannelure, the crimp groove here, this serrated part, and the tip of the bullet and the back of the bullet separated. I think what left the block was the tip of the bullet, and the base of the bullet carried through almost the entire length of the block. Like this is the entrance of the Lehigh Defense, and the other one came here, so this was at about maybe 15 inches, so definitely sufficient penetration after all means and standards that we have. 12 inches should be fine in most cases. So yeah, and some more lead bits here and Lehigh Defense brass bits here. So both bullets performed very well. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. And at this range, the Lehigh Defense did actually perform as advertised. They do state that they need a certain speed threshold in order to reliably work, and that's exactly what the bullet did in this case here. So after repeating this test at a much closer range, what are the observations and what are the conclusions? Well, as you could see in the video, both rounds caused again a lot of damage, and this time the Lehigh Defense bullet did exactly what it was supposed to do. It went in and very quickly started tearing apart. The tip of the bullet started tearing apart. It left pretty large chunks of brass all along the wound track, and this time we didn't get a flat tumble channel, but we actually got this sort of asterisk shaped wound track, which is going to be very effective against whatever you're going to shoot this at. And with the full metal jacket bullet, we saw again it went in. It went straight for a little bit longer time than the Lehigh Defense bullet. Then it started tumbling. It ripped apart the bottom. It flattened out. The lead and the copper jacket separated and also threw some shrapnel into the wound. And both bullets passed through the entire length of the block. And after I dissected the block, I did have two pieces. This was a 24-pound, 12-kilo block, and I still had two remaining fairly good pieces of gelatin, and I shot both again with the full metal jacket and with the Lehigh Defense bullet, and they did perform repeatedly as in the first test. So this was not just some one-hit wonder, but both bullets do perform actually quite well at this distance. In terms of conclusions, would I say that the Lehigh Defense bullet is a failure? No, it's definitely not. If you go on the website, and have to be fair to Lehigh Defense there, they do say that this has a threshold to what it will perform. And at 300 meters, this threshold is just not given anymore, and what they do is, for this application, they do produce a bullet that is made from solid copper, which is much softer than brass, that will still expand at these lower velocities. Unfortunately, right now I can't get my hands on one, but as soon as I can load up some ammo with these bullets and get the chance to try this again, I'm going to do that. And would I say that it performed better than the full metal jacket? Yes, definitely. As I said, it had this asterisk-shaped wound channel and not just a tumble cavity. It did cause more damage. I would say it did so much earlier. So if you have something smaller sized, a skinnier person or a smaller animal, it's going to have this energy dump much quicker. But the full metal jacket bullet was also really impressive. It again caused a lot of damage. But I would still say that the Lehigh Defense bullet has the edge over the full metal jacket bullet, definitely. So if you can get your hands on this ammo and you intend to use it for your police station, for example, in case you get to some sort of bank robbery, shootout, school shooting or terrorist attack, this will definitely be a good fight stopper out to the range as to where it will drop below its threshold speed. And even at the 300 meter range, as we saw in the video from yesterday, it still performed better than the full metal jacket bullet. It left a bigger cavity repeatedly. So is the 55 grain full metal jacket bullet a bad round? No, I would say it's not. For the Hague Convention military troops, I would say it's one of the best rounds you can get, especially at a low price point, maybe for some poorer states that cannot afford to get some sort of specialty OTM special purpose ammunition because they simply can't afford that, and also for use when there's simply, like what we saw in the USA and also here in Europe a little bit a couple of years ago, just a huge scarcity of ammo. and that's the only thing that you can get your hands on. You do not have to feel undergunned with this sort of ammo. It will still be an effective round out to quite a long distance, both for self-defense use and hunting use and those sorts of things. So, yes, as I said, I did not want to cause the Lehigh Defense Company any harm or anything like that. I was just recording what I was seeing. And I think today we saw that their ammo does perform actually just as they advertise it. So it's not a fail. I would say it's definitely not a gimmick. It's not some sort of toy round. It's really serious business. And it's gonna kill. Well, in that sense, be careful whatever you do with your guns, but have your fun, and see you in the next video. Bye.